Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. We're almost at noon. I am a couple miles outside of Rand this morning, probably about 3 or 4 minutes before we get into Rand. We are heading south on Highway 125, Colorado State Highway 125. I kind of think this is going to be the worst road that I'm going to have to be on. I think it will probably even be worse than the Willow Creek Pass Road, but we're fixing to find out. This road gets bad this way just because of the wind blowing across it. You know, when the sun comes out like it's been the last few days and the wind kicks up, it picks up snow. The snow sticks on the road and accumulates on the road as water, and then as slush as things cool down, and then finally as ice. And so this road, even in between storms, will continue to get bad if we have wind and there's any loose snow around, and we've got plenty of that. We're looking up at Parkview Mountain, a little bit over to the right. And we come up around Parkview Mountain, we come up around on the left side of it, just kind of working right underneath the top of it. I mean, when we get up to the top, we're probably a couple of miles away from that peak that we're looking at there, that Little Plenty Peak. But we're not far away at all from the summit. The pass, I think, is it 9,800 feet? And right now, just for reference, we're a little bit over 8,000 feet here. We're like about 8,300 feet here in Rand. I guess I need to slow down. All right. Anyway, it's a little after 11. It is January the 2nd. This is my first it's a snow drive. It's not a snowing drive, but we're driving through the snow. Heading over to Fraser. We'll be going through Granby today. I don't have any work in Granby anymore. It's all gone. But I still have work in Fraser. And we're looking at Rocky Mountain National Park, some of the higher mountains in the forest range. So pretty out here. I love this area. I really, you know, if I could swing it, if I could, well, I wouldn't mind having a little cabin up here. But if I did, I'd like to just have to be here year round, you know, rather than, I don't have a ton of money. I'm not the kind of person that can have two separate households. And that's fine with me. I figure if I could move, then I could probably afford to build a pretty nice house up here. Or maybe there's something worth having up here. But the issue up here, though, is that you've got to be prepared for the weather. The weather will kill. I mean, this is frigid winter up here. This is like living in, the upper reaches of Canada and Alaska. It's cold up here. And the cold temperatures up here, if they're anything like Craig's temperatures, I mean, they drop pretty cold. I think Craig might have this area beat. I know Fraser has some pretty cold temperatures too. They're in the valley, and so they catch that really cold air. It kind of holds it, and they have had some really low temperatures. But I think Craig is at lower temperatures, and Maybell certainly has. It's funny too. I talked about the climate change and the way that the data is altered. Well, even the temperature in Maybell, which I was around when it happened, I think it was 63 below zero in 77. It could have been 78, but I think it was 77, 1977. Well, they erased that. The weather liars, the climate change assholes, the people in government that are fucking with the data. They erased that, and now the high temperature, I think, is in 1985, the 63 below, or 61 below. I believe that's the high temperature. Now, or below temperature, I'm sorry, in Maybell still. And I could be incorrect about the low temperature in the 70s. It might have been 65 below. It was, I think, 63 or 65 below. So that really, that's an annoying thing to see them. And they think they're clever, and I understand the philosophy of these liars. They know if they change the data, who's going to know? Well, a few of us will know and we'll bitch about it, but eventually we'll die out, and eventually their story will be true. That is their operating principle, right? And maybe, and maybe they'll win, but since I've noticed this, but I've been paying more attention to it, it may have been happening before, but since Elon Musk bought Twitter and cleaned it out, I don't know how clean Twitter is now, but it's a lot better than it used to be. There is a lot of pushback. The climate liars, the climate hoaxers, don't have free reign like they used to have. And when I say climate hoaxers, I'm talking about the UN. I'm talking about the World Health Organization whenever they mention it. I'm talking about the World Economic Forum anytime. I'm talking about the bureaucratic arms of pretty much all the Western governments, except maybe a couple of the former Soviet governments. They may still be, may not be infiltrated. I hear Poland is not looking good right now, though I think the left is getting a big grasp on them. Donald Tusk, is that the name I think? Who knows, they could win. However, it's nice to see that there's a lot of pushback. And it's a lot of people pushing back. When I was pushing back about climate a few years ago on Facebook, and the only other person that I saw pushing back on climate was Tony Heller. He was doing it on Facebook, and they throttled him really heavily. They may have even shut him down for a certain amount of time. But he is back on Facebook, or back on YouTube. I'm glad to see that. But those were the only two people that I know of back in like 2019 and 2020 that were griping about climate, and I have absolutely no reach. I mean, I have, what was it, like about 300 some subscribers on this channel, and I appreciate every one of you, but I don't have any kind of reach. Tony Heller has got a lot of reach. On X, formerly known as Twitter, I have a minor little reach, and the thing about X is that I can say, I can more honestly state my opinion. You may wonder why I say more honestly, but I can be more frank about it on X. And even then, X is still, they're kind of weird. Sometimes I'll post something and it won't post, and that might be because it's a reply to somebody who won't allow people that aren't verified to post. And if I recently, I've noticed this has stopped, but initially, and I've been on X for a few months now. I thought I'd try it, I thought I'd see what it was like, and so far, I think it's okay. But I noticed anytime I used the term useful idiot, it would bring up a little page saying, "Are you sure you want to post that?" Most Xers don't post that kind of content. There were basically a little filter that popped up, chastised me for using a word that they don't think is good. However, the term useful idiot is actually, it's certainly derogatory, but it's a descriptive term first, coined by Karl Marx. So it seems like they've finally dropped, anytime I write useful idiot, they finally dropped that little trigger. And it probably has to be because, let's pull the, no, yeah, I'll pull it back a little bit. I think it's probably because so many other people are using that term also. And it is actually a term. It's not, yes, it's derogatory, but it's an actual term. So it's not, I'm not trying to be derogatory. When I use it, I'm trying to describe a person that is under the influence of the left, unwittingly. And they're typically, this is a weird thing to say, but they're typically knowingly unwittingly, or knowingly unwittish. They know that what I'm saying is that they don't have to be stupid. They choose to be stupid. It's part of it's kind of like the gender thing. I mean, if people actually think there are more than two genders, then they are knowingly being stupid. But they're acting like they're not stupid. So they're knowingly being unknowing. I guess that there's probably a much easier, better term to describe that I'm trying to describe. This isn't even too bad up here. It's a little bit icy, but it's not. It's not terrible. And keep in mind, I am not in four-wheel drive today. And I have hubs now that I've unlocked so that none of my running gear is turning. I think that will help my gas mileage. And if I don't need the four-wheel drive, I'm happy to just not have it. What I do have, which I think is quite beneficial, is I have good tires on this car. They are worth a lot. That won't get me back into the position, what I guess what I'm trying to say is, with these good tires and four-wheel drive, this car is beautiful on slippery surfaces. I don't have the four-wheel drive, so I don't have that kind of grab on the road. I don't have as many tires, digging in, and I'm pushing from the back. So it's quite a disadvantage, but I still have good snow tires, and in my opinion, I'll just go slow. Looks to me like that might be taking advantage of this nice weather to plow the roads wider up here. I'm assuming they got a maintainer, or they've got some sort of snow eater, and they're probably probably pushing the snow off the road. That's what it looks like to me. Now, it's interesting too that I'm going downhill in a lower gear. So I've got, right now, I mean, the traction I have is extremely good traction. Understanding that if I wanted to slip, that I could certainly slip. So I'm just taking my time. Yeah, they're just clearing this spot out, it looks to me like. And now we are a couple miles underneath the summit, as advertised. And you might be able to see there's some rocky ridges kind of hiding up in the trees there. Yeah, we're gonna go by a really cool cliff right here. I really want to get out sometime and explore this really, really neat. But that's got to be an igneous, an extrusion of some kind. I thought, well, it doesn't have to be, but I think it is. Anyway, back to this political thing. I think that what Elon Musk has done is extremely commendable. While I'm not a huge Tesla vehicle fan, the technology is good. But you know, there's a reason that electric cars went out of style, because electric cars were one of the first cars to be tried. It's a great idea. The issue is really, it's two things, you know. It's the amount of battery that you need to hold the charge that you need. That's one thing, and that's a big deal. And I mean, obviously they've been improving. Cell phones have probably done more than any other technology to advance that, you know, lithium-ion battery technology. But then the other issue is charging, because lithium-ion batteries are a pain in the ass to charge. You can't just, unless there's some really sophisticated, now, as far as I know, you can't just hook a bunch of batteries up in series or series parallel or whatever, and then hook a charger to the positive and negative, you know, that like the load, where you would hook the load to. You can't do that with lithium-ion batteries. I've built lithium-ion batteries. I know this. I've destroyed lithium-ion batteries by putting them together incorrectly and charging them incorrectly. So even for a little power tool, you need to have a battery management system, a little board that charges each battery individually. But if you've got a car like a Tesla, I mean, those are several little batteries, and they all need to be charged individually. And there's probably a battery management system built into the Tesla battery. I mean, the thing is expensive. So while I think they're doing what they can with the technology, I just don't think the technology is there for a jump into electric. And not only that, but there's absolutely no evidence that electric vehicles are better for the planet than gas-powered vehicles. And to add to that, there's absolutely no evidence that fossil fuels are heating our climate up or destroying our world environmentally. We are definitely adding, you know, CO2 to the atmosphere, but no one has proven that's a bad thing. And no one has proven that the things that we have done on this planet cause global warming. And no one has proven that there's even a thing, such a thing as global warming. But it is funny on Twitter, the useful idiots all say, this is what they love to say. They love to say, all of the scientists agree. There's 100% agreement. You know, they use that term, right? The term for agreement, I can't think of it right now. Consensus, yeah. And I posted, that's bullshit, because I know scientists personally that don't agree at all with this bullshit. And I know scientists from seeing them on YouTube saying this bullshit. They don't agree with it. So, but I also know that the left set up a a website set up a survey that you could go enlist, and you could take this survey and you could tell this website that you're a scientist, and this website would just take your word for it. So what they did was they did what they do when they, if you are a city government person and you want to get something done, this is what they do in Craig, and you want to get something done in your town, but you know that everyone's going to be against it because it's stupid. You just want it for your own selfish desire. And that's definitely Craig. The people that run Craig, they do that. That's their normal mode of operation. If they want it, they will do whatever they can to get it. And they cheat and they lie and they steal. And the way they do that is they get a survey company to ask a bunch of loaded questions that, when answered, make it appear to anyone looking at the survey like everyone is for this thing, or a huge amount of people are for this thing, when it's not true. That's not a hard thing to do. All you have to do to do something like that is to say, well, if you wanted a new rec center, would you prefer it on the west side of town or the east side of town? So you're going to answer, well, maybe I want it on the west side of town. They're going to take that as you want the rec center and you want it on the west side of town. Or they're just going to say, you want the rec center. They don't care about the west. That was their little lie, their little Trojan horse that they used. And I've seen this happen time and time again in Craig. I've had people call me and ask me questions like that, and I said, I'm not going to answer that question. And occasionally the people that are doing the survey are like, yeah, you're right, it's bullshit. I've had them actually tell me that. But it's not like it's a big secret. You just have to be a little bit of a thinking person to tell what they're doing. And our little town of Craig, the politicians in our town would be just as corrupt as the politicians in Washington if they had the money and the power. I hate to say it, but politicians, for the most part, are a bunch of corrupt fuckwads. And what's up with Lauren Boebert? What's going on with her? Has she been corrupted? I know they tried to do the sex thing to her a couple of months ago. Catch her in the theater, giving her boyfriend, I guess it was her boyfriend, some work. Yes, it was a job of some kind. He was apparently getting. So anyway, I think it was manual labor. I think it was a hand kind of a thing. Anyway, that's probably about as far as I'm going to push that. I could probably just say it. I mean, apparently, sexual stuff is no big deal to say on YouTube, but I'll skip it. If I don't have to be crass, I really don't need to be crass. And usually when I cuss for effect. So if I'm cussing, it's because I have a very strong opinion about that I want to convey to you. That just saying a plain sentence, wouldn't convey. I like talking about this kind of stuff because I get so spread out, and I go up branches here and there. It's like climbing a big tree, and I get hung up on a branch here, and I'll climb a little bit, then I'll end up falling. I'll go back on that branch, and sometimes I make it to the top of the tree and back down, and sometimes I don't. However, I'm still focused, and I'm talking about climate change and the way that people that are useful idiots push climate change for the liars that have created it. And what's going on here? Oh, he's doing some backwoods stuff. He's got his snowshoes out. So the thing that really, I think the thing that's happening, like if I pull it all the way back to the big picture, it's China and it's the European Union and it's the bureaucracies in our government, and it's also the H&R departments in several large private businesses that are all, they've become communist sympathizers, whether they understand that or not. I think most of them do. Maybe not a lot of the useful idiots, which is why you call a person who doesn't understand what's really going on a useful idiot, because they are doing something under false pretenses. There are people out there that I've argued with that really honestly believe that climate change is happening. They don't understand they're being lied to by the people they think are in their corner. And those people, again, China, the European Union, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, a lot of the non-government agencies are all communist. It makes sense. I mean, if you can push communism through a non-governmental agency or through an agency that works with the government, you can go out and you can raise money from useful idiots, by the way, or you can take money directly from a government through tax. You can steal it, and that way you don't have to spend your money to affect the changes that you want to affect. I mean, that's what they do. That's Bill Gates does that all the time. I mean, that's what his partnership programs are all about. Not just his, but everyone's that do that. That's why they do that. That way government will spend our tax money to destroy our country. And it has to make the leftists extremely happy. The fact that they have hoodwinked people so much that these people are willingly destroying their own country, hurting their own families and their friends and their own communities, their own counties and their own states for communism, so that China can dominate in the world. That's the reason all this shit is going on. But also the European Union. And if they're successful in killing the United States, and they're certainly, I mean, we are the number one target right now, but they're also working at, the European Union countries. The European Union is doing what it can to destroy. If they're successful destroying the United States, then China and the European Union will be at odds with each other. And they'll have the same fight going on between them, because there can only be one communist dictatorship. I think even down the road, let's say this all happens, and even if brothers are running countries, let's say some guy's running China and his brother's running the European Union, if they get into a fight or get into an issue, don't think there won't be a war. Don't think they won't mind, sacrificing millions or billions of people for their petty differences. That's the power of communism. That's the outright ludicrous amount of power that no one should ever have. So, and that's where all this shit comes from: environmental movement, climate change, everything. It's not climate change. It's not saving the environment. It's all about politics. It's all about pushing communism out into the world, because the communists cannot compete with the West on a fair playing field. They have got to cheat. They have got to lie. They have got to steal. And they're good at it. And they have corrupted, how hard is it to corrupt a government? Apparently it's not very hard. Because look at how many of our government bureaucrats are on the left fighting the Constitution, that very Constitution that they swore to uphold at some point in time in their life. Look how easily they were swayed into becoming enemies of the state. Look at the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the NSA. Look at the judges everywhere. There's pitifully few people that are willing to stand up for the Constitution. And that is not good. Is that noise? Oh. Oh, yeah. I got this little thump, this little tap that's intermittent. I would blame it on the belt because the belt sounded that way, but I could actually hear when my belt broke, I could hear the metallic clang of it slapping against the interior of the hood. So that was pretty distinctive. This thing sounds like it's inside. It sounds like it's just something slapping around. And it probably is, but I have no idea what it is. But it could be something underneath the car, tapping. I don't know. Yet another mystery. This car is running good today, though. I'm real pleased that it's doing a good job, as good as it is doing. When I get to Fraser, I'll open the hood and I'll double check my power steering to see what it looks like. I expect it to be down some, but I'm also thinking that if this is a seal, that just the act of having pressure in the system and steering it, and I've said this a few times today, maybe not in this video, maybe that will fix my problem. I've got a slight leak in my power steering. That developed after a hose got knocked off by a belt that was ripped up because of an alternator that's incorrectly sized for this car. But I didn't catch that the alternator sits 1/8 of an inch behind where it needs to sit. And so my belt wants to ride on the lip of that alternator, and it did that, and it cut the belt. So all this is because of a design flaw on a replacement part from guess where? If you guessed China, you're right. It's really something to consider, the quality of things that we take for granted in America. But now that so much is being built in China, and so much is being built without the kind of supervision that there used to be in products that were meant to be exported here, that the quality of the products is going to hell, and it's going to hell pretty quickly. So it seems to me that it's probably a reasonable statement to make that as China and the European Union and the rest of the communists are weakening our country, which is what they're doing through everything that they've done, inside the government, outside the government, in business, in society, TikTok, think about that, what they're doing there. As they're weakening our extremely strong way of life, where we have pride in the things that we build, and we build quality parts. We build quality things. We do quality work. We have pride in our workmanship, whatever it is that we build. It's part of being an American, probably part of being a European, part of being in the West. You know, we want to be good workers. We want to do good. We want to make whatever we make or do whatever we do the best that we can. That's not how communism works. Communism makes people go to work and just do the minimum so that they don't get in trouble. That's really what communism does. They really don't. For some reason, you just don't take ownership of anything, probably because you don't own anything. And one of the things that I still watch ADV China, guys that ride on motorcycles around China. They're in the States now. They got out of China, and they still do their YouTube stuff, and I like watching them from time to time. I don't watch them all the time, but you know, when I'm thinking about them or something pops up, I'll watch them. They were showing buildings that were just, everything in China is a facade. It's bizarre to say that, but it's not untrue. The concrete is the cheapest concrete that they can actually make. If there's a way to make concrete cheaper, they don't care if the concrete's no good. If you're in China, you're under that communist rule, you cut your corners, and everything that is built in China is shit. It's junk. It's crap. So I think it is safe to say that as China, if they actually successfully take over, they're going to kill quality. I mean, they already are, but that is going to be another one of those Western principles that goes by the wayside, because China cannot compete. If they can't make quality, they can kill it. Why bother competing with you know, if you're racing somebody, if you can just make sure that they can't even enter the race, you know, handicap them. But then the race is going to be whatever you can bring, and if you have to handicap somebody to win, you're not bringing the best game, and that's China. So this world has no alternative but to go downhill. If you think of the things that way, we have hit our peak, and we're in the decline right now. I hope it changes, but as long as China continues, and the left continues to push their woke nonsense, their climate change, and their destructive practices to kill our government, we are in decline, and it's not good. Now, I will say this, just because I understand this doesn't mean that I want to accept it, and doesn't mean that I'm going to change and become somebody who does really shitty work and doesn't care. So I kind of think that those principles of the West, you know, doing good work, having good morals, responsibility, ownership, it could well be that those morals are not going to allow us to submit to these communists. I think there may come a point where we're just going to turn and fight. We're going to say, you know, they're not going to stop until they kill us. So we're just going to go ahead and, you know, we're going to do what we have to do to take our country back, to take the world back for that matter. Maybe. Now we're dropping down into the Colorado River Valley. Just down here at the bottom is Granby. And it's been a beautiful day for a drive. Talking politics, it's a distasteful thing, but I think it's important. I think it's important to talk about it. And maybe even more important because so many people in society want to censor people that talk about politics. So I think it's important too. And I don't think that everything is bad. I don't think it's all bad news. Again, I believe in God. I don't quite know what God is, but I think I might be more Christian than anything else. And I believe God is perfect. And I say this all the time. This is like the way that I close talking about politics by saying, I think there's hope. That's really what I'm saying. Because I think that God is in control. I think that things are going exactly how God wants them to go. And if that's the case, the troubles in our world are always going to be troubles in our world. And it's probably more important how we deal with things. Kind of like Gandalf telling Frodo, it's what you do with the time you have. That's the important thing. I think that that's probably true. And I think it pretty much has to be true. And thinking of it that way means that we're not going to fix the world. But I think that the world's always going to be a struggle because there always has to be, I wish this person go. Kind of got me freaked out because they're just sitting there. I don't know if they're gonna. Anyway, they didn't. So good. But like I said, if this world will always be this way. Apparently, because the playing field that we operate on is one where we can choose to do good or bad. Like I said, I've said it before. I think there's something to it. I was talking to my nephew the other night, and we like to talk about this philosophical stuff. And I was telling him that, and I said, well, apparently the world's going to end anyway, where the left is going to win, the communists are going to win. I mean, that's what I got from my pretty. I'm not what you would call a Bible scholar by any means. I've read a little bit of it, but some of the things I remember, I believe that there was language talking about the end times, and this is all prophecy stuff, right? But that the left, the communists, the evil people will finally get control of the earth, but that the earth will pass away. I mean, die. The earth will go away. That is what I think that's what I've taken out of what I've read. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. He said he's heard some things that he believes make that story a little bit different. So I need to talk to him more about to see what he's got to say, because I'm certainly not a biblical scholar by any means. Not even, I know a few things. I try to stay in my little playground of things that I'm familiar with when I talk about stuff, which is why I tend to repeat a lot of the things that I do. It's not to be repetitive. It's mainly to be as accurate as I can be. Understanding when we're talking about belief, it's anyone's. Belief is belief. It's not fact. Here we are in Granby. I used to have some accounts in Granby. I mean, just not long ago, I lost the remaining accounts last month in Granby with a company that I work for. That company is that noise. That's not a good thing to do. I'm going to have to pull over. And no, while I'm pulled over, I'm just going to go ahead and check the fluid level. I'll be right back. Well, that was pretty good. This morning I started out in Craig. I had topped off this power steering reservoir yesterday, and then I drove the car a few times and I didn't look at it. Started the car up this morning. I put a piece of cardboard underneath the car where it was leaking so that I'd have an indication of how much was actually leaking out. And I had a tiny bit leak out, not a lot. So I went ahead this morning, started the car, let it warm up for about 20 minutes. It was about 3 degrees this morning, I think. It was pretty cold. So it ran about 20 minutes, warmed up, and it really didn't leak much more, if any. I couldn't really tell. Then I drove to Steamboat and I checked it in Steamboat, and it was down about an ounce. I mean, I put just a little tiny slug of power steering, which by this transmission fluid, in case you want to know. Dextron 3, I think is what this power steering fluid is. So I put a tiny little bit in it, and it's exactly where it was. It might have gone down a tiny bit, but not much. So it might not have been a problem. I might not have a leak, or it might have been leaking, and maybe I was right about that. Maybe pressurizing the cylinder and just running it for a while will get everything back in place where it needs to be. We'll see. But that's an extremely good thing to see. I'm happy to see that, because I've got about 700 miles this week to go do. So yeah, I lost all of my accounts in Granby. I just have one account in Fraser. That's it. And how long will that last? I have no idea. I do think the company is trying to find other things to do. I think that they've been looking. I probably don't give them as much credit as I should. They are a woke company. That's a very sad thing. That's not helpful. But I think that they're still looking to try to find other things to do. And I sort of understand that. I mean, if I were this company and you have workers that have got incredibly deep reach in your market area, which is a pretty big market area, that would be attractive, you would think, to other people that sell products or services nationwide or beyond, you know. I'm going to save that coffee. I've got a little bit of coffee left. I want to save it. Just a little shot. Oh, we'll see. We'll see if this company can. You know, then the sad thing is this company is a woke company, and it's wokeness that is trying to kill companies. They don't understand that their own philosophy. That's where, like I said, the term "useful idiot" is a pretty important term, and there are a hell of a lot. They're doing a little traffic. There are a hell of a lot of useful idiots in the upper levels of management in a lot of the companies in the West. And they were indoctrinated in college while they were there, thinking they were getting a bachelor's or a master's of business or something along that line, or a PhD or whatever, not understanding that most colleges could give a shit about that anymore. That what's important now for most colleges, because they've been woke for quite a long time, is indoctrination. Now, you may have wondered, for you guys that watch all my videos, by the way, I appreciate it, may wonder why I didn't talk too much about politics during the fall. And what really happened was, I think it was October 3rd? I think it was October 3rd. That I knew the trees were changing really fast. I had missed the week before filming. So I think it was October 3rd, I think it was a Tuesday. I went to Laramie and I filmed from me backing out of my driveway almost non-stop all day long. The first video that I posted of October 3rd was the Medicine Creek video, and I talked about politics in that video. Then I went to Laramie, and I came back through Walden. No, I came back and I went down the Laramie River Road and I filmed that. And I filmed Cameron Pass. So that was my second video. In my third video, I filmed from Rand to Kremlin. So that was Cottonwood Pass. My fourth video, I filmed Gore Pass, My fifth video, I filmed the Yampa Valley, and I didn't actually put that particular video out, but I did 4 videos. Well, actually, there were 6 videos worth of material in one day, and I put 4 or 5 of those out. And by the time every time I started filming, I just was talking less and less about politics because I'd already said everything, and repeating it was just, it was just tiresome. And so that's why there's not much political talk in those videos. I talked myself out. And you may notice in the fall color videos that I'm talking about. And I've dated them all accurately, so you know which ones they are. I just was tired of talking about politics. I might be the same way today, coming back, but I'll probably film. I really don't know. I know there's a guy that wanted me to film Winter Park, and a couple times I've done that, but I just haven't really liked the way it came out yet. I haven't given up on filming Winter Park again. I would just, sometimes, a video has got to hit me right, or I don't want to go through the process of editing it and putting it out when I have something that I think is more relevant or better, or maybe there's a flaw in it somewhere, a big flaw. I don't know. But I do always try to film more than I use, so that I have a little bit of a pad of something to put out. And keeping in mind that I run a route, I am usually on the same road the same week. You know what I mean? But I'm able to vary my route a little bit, just depending on the circumstances. Like today, if this car is really behaving well, I might do the trough road. We'll just have to see. We are now in Tabernash, Colorado. I think the biggest building in Tabernash is a pot dispensary. I could be wrong about that. There could be some apartment buildings that are pretty big here. But there's a dispensary over on the left side of the road that's gigantic. I think that's it right there, that thing. Well, not that one. Maybe that one. Where's it at? Oh, maybe it's up here. Okay, that looks right. Yeah. Building right over there on the left. The multi-roof building. You can't see it now, but that is a dispensary. I guess I'm glad that there was a ballot question in Colorado about making pot legal. But I don't really believe it was a good thing. And I think there was a lot of corruption in the voting that made pot legal in Colorado. And I'm shocked at how many people buy pot. Interesting little fact, apparently. I haven't verified this, but my friends told me that between Routt County, which has got several dispensaries, and Moffat County, which our little town, I think it's got like 7 pot shops in it. It's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, or maybe I'm just out of touch. So apparently Moffat County made more money selling pot than Steamboat did. That's kind of crazy to me. However, apparently in Moffat County, there was a tax break that apparently the city people, who, hell, they might actually co-own all these stupid ass pot shops. Apparently they don't get charged tax, or they get reduced tax or something. So it's cheaper to buy marijuana in Craig at one of the dispensaries. That's, I guess, what is apparently the reason that people are buying more pot in Craig. But it could also be that people from Utah are driving into Craig, and people from Wyoming are driving into Craig, because we are the northwest corner. But I think that there are pot shops in Dinosaur. Yeah, I know there's one there. A few years ago, I was doing some copper pressings. You know, I made it like a cool form, and it was when it was the year that pot was legalized in Colorado, and I thought it was ridiculous. But I made a play to memorialize that date. Not that I think it was a good thing, but I thought it would be a selling point. And so I made a license plate with a pot leaf behind it. You know, in the Colorado mountains. Basically, looks like a Colorado license plate with a pot leaf behind, in the middle. And I thought that would sell good. And I put a lot of time and effort into that thing. And I never sold one. They're really cool. But when I was marketing these things, I made a bunch of these things up, and I drove to every pot shop in Colorado on the western slope. Okay. I drove to every pot shop from Grand Junction up to Craig. And so I hit all the pot shops locally, and some in Steamboat too. And I gave them all a sample, and a lot of them probably still have it, because it's really a cool thing. But I never got one order for it. I thought people would buy that. So it was a worthy thing to do, I guess. I thought it would be really, I thought it would be more interesting to sell it, not in support of it, but just to memorialize the ridiculous mistake that the state made by doing that. But I don't know if it was a mistake or not. I do know we are getting really close to my place of work today, my stop. I hope I still have an account here. So I am going to sign off. If you guys are going somewhere today, drive carefully. I am going to do the same thing. Let's see, I'm going to do this. Yeah. I'll go this way. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Take care.